there! Just got back from a camping trip. Man, I had a whale of a time. I got 100 fish. I saw 50 deer and about 6 bald eagles. But anyways, let's get to the grammar grab bag. What's in here for today? Hyperbole. Have you ever heard a tall tale or exaggerated something or maybe heard a story that was just too hard to believe? Well, let's see if we hear anything like that in our story today. Alden's Adventure, story and pictures by Cathy, video and special effects by Roger. Alden usually dreaded the first day of school because every year his teachers would ask the same question. What did you do on summer break? He never had anything exciting to tell his class, but this year was different. He bounded off the school bus and practically ran into his classroom. This year, Alden was ready. As soon as his teacher, Mr. Martin, asked the question, Alden's hand shot up in the air. Alden, do you have something you'd like to share with the class? His teacher asked. Alden stood up and walked to the front of the room. Yes, I do, he said. Alden cleared his throat and began to recount the details of his great summer adventure. My family went to see my grandparents, Alden started. He noticed the class looked disappointed. They had heard lots of grandparent stories in the past. But I want to tell you about the trip we had getting there, he quickly added. When we left, we drove right into a bad storm. The wind was blowing our car back and forth across the road and rain was falling so hard we couldn't see out the window until all of a sudden everything stopped. Then right in front of us we saw it. The class leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide in anticipation of what happened. Alden continued. A huge tornado, 100 miles wide, blocked the road. It came toward us and lifted our car into the air. We hung on for dear life. It carried us 200 miles into the next state and put us down in a motel parking lot. The class let out a collective,
"Ooh."
The motel had a giant swimming pool, Alden said, with a water slide that was 3 stories high, and free ice cream cones and all the pizza you could eat. Everyone went. The next day, we decided to camp out in the woods by a river, Alden stated. During the night, I heard a noise and looked out of the tent. A bear as tall as a house had gotten into our food supply and was eating everything in sight. I looked into his eyes and I could tell he meant business. I knew I had to protect my family.
"What did you do?"
asked Jonathan. I quickly broke off a branch from a nearby tree just as the bear lunged for a tent, Alden answered. I waved the branch in his face and yelled, "Get out of here, you mean old bear!" The grizzly turned and ran off into the woods.
"Wow,"
said the class. Alden was on a roll. We needed food, he said, so when the sun came up, I went down to the river and caught 50 fish with my bare hands. We didn't have any matches, so I rubbed 2 sticks together to start a fire. Responded the class. The next day we rented a boat to go out on the lake, Alden told the class. We hit a bunch of rocks that ripped so many holes in the bottom of the boat it looked like Swiss cheese. I knew it was going to sink if I didn't do something. Quickly I reached into my pocket and grabbed a pack of gum. I chewed so fast I thought my teeth would fall out. But finally I was able to plug the holes with the gum and get us back to shore. The class broke out in applause. Alden's best friend raised his hand and said,
"Hey, Alden, I thought your grandparents lived across the street from you."
Alden's face turned a little red and he said, "Oh, right." He grinned and shrugged his shoulders. Mr. Martin walked over and shook Alden's hand and said, "Thank you for giving us a great example of our lesson for today." He went to the board and wrote the word hyperbole. Turning to the class, Mr. Martin explained, hyperbole means using exaggerated language to describe something. An example is to say, "This book weighs a ton." Can anyone think of someone who uses hyperbole, he asked. No one raised their hand. Instead, the class said in unison,
Alden.
And that's no hyperbole. The end. Happy travels!